Okay, welcome everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get us started here. I know it's a couple minutes till 6 o'clock, but I wanted to welcome all of you that are with us for this evening's Final Pitches event. And we want to thank everybody who's really helped us along the way. This has really been a whole number of people in the College of IST that has made this possible. So I just want to make sure that I do thank everybody that's helped with this. And those of you who don't know that are joining us, we want to help you understand that the purpose of IdeaMakers Challenge is really to help people at that first stage or that preliminary stage of a startup company. And they have to, the teams have to identify a problem. These are to be interdisciplinary teams, and they really need to think through the ideas of the value, the customers, and the revenue model of their company that they're trying to start up. The process has been 17 teams applied for this. We narrowed it down to the top 10. Those teams participated in 3 different workshops to help them understand how to get their pitch ready. And then they competed in a semifinal round, which then narrowed that list down to the top 5 teams that you're seeing tonight, which is really exciting for us. I want to welcome you this evening to our 2 judges. Todd and Steve are joining us this evening, and they are both alumni of the College of IST, both graduated in 2005, and we cannot thank them enough for the time that they're giving to us tonight to help judge these final 5 teams. We're really excited to have them here. We are going to have a keynote speaker while the judges deliberate. Nayeem is going to be talking about getting your startup off the ground. And again, Nayeem has been graciously agreed to give us some time this evening and talk about how to get your startup going, how to get it off the ground. And so that'll be coming a little bit later, probably anywhere between 7 and 7:15 as the judges deliberate to identify the top 3 teams. Okay. So the pitch format is going to be a 5-minute pitch, in which their semifinal was a 3-minute pitch, but this will be extended by a few minutes to help explain their ideas a little bit better to the judges. And then the judges will have a 5-minute Q&A to ask questions of each particular team. So we have these 5 teams, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to stop my share here and confirm that our judges are here at this point. And Pam's giving me a nod yes, so very good. So again, thank you judges for joining us. And if you have any questions along the way, judges, by all means, please ask. If you need us to adjust anything, by all means, just let us know. But we're going to go ahead and get started here with our first team. Again, we have 5 teams this evening, and we're going to go about every 15 minutes or so. But I will be keeping track of the 5-minute time limit, and I will be if you happen to go over those 5 minutes for all teams, I'll be stopping you. So nothing personal, but those are the rules that we're having for everybody. So so team 1, Emily, yep, there she is. I was looking at Emily and I talked last week, so just looking for a thumbs up to let me know when you're ready to go. And if you're ready, then very good. Awesome. Okay, team 1, it's all yours. Very good. Thank you.
"18 million students in East Africa do not complete primary school. This cripples their chances for success later in life." This is a typical Kenyan classroom. Students are sitting on the floor. There are 1 or 2 teachers and very few textbooks, notebooks, or writing utensils. The average student-to-teacher ratio in rural areas is 60-1. All of this makes it difficult for students to stay on track in their learning. William is one of those kids. His crowded classroom with few learning resources has slowed his progress in school. Others in his class are as young as 6 and as old as 12. Each at a different learning level. Kids like William need external help that the public school system simply cannot provide. Non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, have met that need with external programs that use a method called teaching at the right level, a methodology proven to educate students of varied abilities, but it has unneeded expenses and inefficiencies. NGO program managers are telling us that more students need help than they can provide for, and providing paper learning materials and assessment booklets can become a huge strain on their program budgets. We've also spoken with NGO instructors who say they have trouble recording a large amount of data points about their students. It is time-consuming and exhausting. It's not the best use of an instructor's ability. Program managers also have the task of collecting and analyzing all of the instructor data from their programs. Transporting the paper records takes a lot of time and it is not reliable.
Sapo AI is innovating in the fast-growing teaching at the right level space. Our digital tool uses AI to do intelligent student assessments, dynamic grouping, and targeted activities, thereby reducing program costs, enhancing instructor-student interaction, and unifying data collection for instructors and program managers. Using a speech-to-text model developed with thousands of audio recordings of Kenyan students, our mobile app can assess a student's literacy level. It makes a mundane process for students more interactive and satisfying, and it also introduces some students to technology for the first time. Using those assessment results, our app seamlessly groups students by learning level and presents intelligent insights to assist instructors in meeting their students' specific learning needs. And our app innovates on user experience by automating data collection and analysis and showing instructors detailed assessment results. This saves time and effort for instructors so they can meet students' learning needs head on. And lastly, our activities page contains learning goals, materials, and procedures that are targeted for each learning level. In addition, we have prototyped a dashboard that allows managers to review aggregate data from their programs, view trends, and analyze their program's effectiveness.
Using the data seamlessly collected by the Nayeem Hussain app, program managers can prove the effectiveness of their programs to potential investors. With additional funding, they can increase the longevity of their programs, cement the teaching at the right level as a widely used teaching methodology, and expand their programs to reach more children. By refocusing instructors' times and effort away from mundane data collection onto their students, they have the ability to make a greater impact and do what they do even better. After learning in a Teaching at the Right Level program using the Nayeem Hussain app, William was able to catch up in his learning and take control of his studies. He was able to complete a primary and secondary school and attain a well-paying career. With external programs that are more effective, more efficient, and further reaching, his story could be shared by millions of students in his shoes.
Organizations that help students like William lack a tool that increases instructor-student interactions, provides unified and comprehensive data analytics, and houses a speech-to-text model customized for a Kenyan user base. Nayeem Hussain is entering an open space in the market by creating a technological tool customized to educational organizations' specific needs. After this competition, we are looking to further develop our technology by getting detailed feedback from program managers and instructors on our functioning prototype, testing the usability of our app interface, and then working to implement the feedback and test results into a better design for our product.
The UN estimates that there are 250 million students around the world who lack basic literacy skills and are often living in poverty. By providing educational NGOs with the tools they need to make their programs more effective and efficient, Nayeem Hussain AI helps reach them by making a primary education accessible to students left behind in Kenya, across Africa, and around the globe.
And that's time, Team One. Well done. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. At this time, we have 5-minute time period for our two judges to ask any questions that you'd like of Team One.
Yeah, I can start with a question, and thanks very much for your presentation, Steve Gargiulo. So I'm just wondering, maybe you could talk a little bit first about how you came up with this idea, where it came from.
Yeah, Tanish, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So our two co-founders, Edward and Mumbai, they met in Kenya, and Mumbai is a community organizer, and she works in schools every day. Her organization actually supplies teachers to under-resourced schools, and Edward is a computer engineering student from Penn State. And so they met together and they decided that technology could be introduced to help alleviate this problem in Kenya. So that's where the idea came from.
And then maybe one more, and I'll throw it to Todd, is I'm wondering, so when you showed the competition and you showed what differentiates you, the big thing was that's the speech to text capabilities. Can you talk just a little bit more about what that means exactly?
Sure. So our speech to text model was created with 3,000 audio recordings of Kenyan students reading English letters, English words, and sentences. And we used Microsoft's custom speech portal to make a speech to text model that's super accurate for our user base.
But like the context in which that's used. So that means like, when would a student be set, like, what's the context of where that technology would be used?
Sure. So when they're taking an assessment, so they're reading a paragraph, for example, when they read it, we are able to detect their literacy level.
Okay. Okay, I have a couple more, but I'll throw to Todd.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Great job. Excellent presentation. Just a couple of questions that I wanted to get some further insight on. So as you guys think about, certainly this is a big problem that you're going after. What are just from an overall goals of the project perspective, maybe talk about a little bit more about that and where you see having an impact in achieving those goals, and what are the biggest impediments that you see that you have to overcome in order to do that with your particular solution?
Yeah, I can take that one. So I think where we see this project going is to further the teaching at the right level space. So teaching at the right level is just a process that uses assessment, grouping, and activities to accommodate learners of varied abilities. So right now we're just in the literacy space, but we hope to expand this into further context. So with math assessments and any other kind of subjects. So that's kind of our long-term goal, is to provide this customizable tool for organizations that are teaching learners of different abilities. And then I guess our struggle with that will be creating those different types of assessment. So we were actually in a meeting earlier today talking about if there were different languages that programs are using to teach literacy, that would be kind of a roadblock for us as we're all English native speakers. So yeah, that's something we're looking to in the future.
Thanks, Steve. If you have more questions, go ahead.
I think, David, you tell us, are we at time?
No, you have about 2 minutes. You're good. Thank you.
About 2 more minutes?
Yes.
So I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about the business model for this. My understanding is it's something that you intend to, make available, I guess, through NGOs. Like, would it be NGOs would buy this essentially for different teacher communities? Like, how do you think that would work?
So our plan right now is that we would sell directly to the NGOs, as you said. And so they would be paying us out of their grant funding money. So we would be helping them in the grant writing process to make sure that our app is in their paperwork so that they will be able to use our technology out of that grant funding. And so, yes, we'll be providing our technology directly to them.
And I appreciate that you focused on, you focus on a specific set of users, right? You're talking about the Kenyan market and making sure your voice to text is differentiated to work there. I guess, what would you need to prove there for it to become successful enough that you would consider expansion? I guess, like, what's your hypothesis of, what would happen?
Tanish, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So I think at the core of what we do is we do assessments, grouping, and activities. And so right now we're focusing on literacy assessments, but that same structure that is the core of teaching at the right level, you can customize it for any subject. So you can customize it, like Emily said, for mathematics. We have an example of a high school teacher in Kenya who used the same method to teach his high school business students. So there's a huge opportunity here to teach underserved kids.
Can you talk a little bit more about where you are with the prototype and how close this is to deployment?
Sure. So our prototype right now is fully coded. Right now we're planning to launch a boot camp this April with students in Kenya, and we're going to fund it. And we're going to conduct usability tests to see whether our design works for instructors and whether students like the new assessment format, since this is the first time they're going to be taking an assessment in a digital manner compared to the traditional paper assessment.
I think that will be good for time for Q&A. Thank you, judges. Great questions. And thank you again, Team 1. Well done. We appreciate it. Very good. So what we'd like to do just before we bring up Team 2, this is usually a time for the judges to maybe just jot some notes down. And that way, if you have any kind of an extra few minutes to just make sure that you get all your notes before we bring in the next team. While they're doing that, if Team 2, if you could raise your hand, and that way Kevin Wall, who is maintaining the admin, the host status, and I see you're already doing it. So if you could just make sure that you raised your hand so that he can promote you to host so you can share your screen. Okay.
Is that everybody on the team?
I was muted. Team 2, is that everybody?
I didn't see Daniel Fleming on the list.
Yes, Dan Fleming recently broke his neck.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Okay.
like this was this past weekend, and we also added a member to our team named Svetlana.
Okay, I did add Svetlana.
Yep,
Okay, so there should be 4 of you, is that correct?
correct.
Okay, we
Very
should
good.
be all set then.
Thank you, Kevin.
Uh-huh.
Judges, are you ready for Team 2? Okay, very good. Make sure you have enough time. So, okay, Team 2, you should have control. I see your deck is already up. So I will let you get started when you're ready. You're ready to go. Yeah.
Okay, make sure you're off mute.
Yeah, sorry, just 1 second. I was fixing the background. It wasn't working out. Okay.
Okay, it's all good.
Good evening. My name is Shakay Simpson, and tonight I am accompanied by David Moyer, Jinsun Wu, and Svetlana, and we are Recyclio. After conducting firsthand research in Kenya and in speaking with previous greenhouse owners, we have validated the assumption that many smallholder farmers abandon greenhouse practices largely due to mismanagement. A single failed yield due to mismanagement could lead an entire family to becoming yet another staggering statistic of food insecurity, failing a process that was intended to be a solution. Knowing when to tend to one's greenhouse is essential, as many owners work a full-time job for supplemental income. With current solutions, users have no choice but to estimate climate off sense of feel and intuition. And many amateur farmers also lack extensive training and education related to operating these structures, which makes acquiring and maintaining greenhouses all the more challenging. Now, Svetlana will share in more detail who we are as a startup.
We Recyclio are the bridging gap between accessibility, affordability, and reliability to remedy the issue of food insecurity in countries affected by climate change. Now, David will go in depth about our IoT technology.
Our IoT device is an environmental sensor placed in the soil to measure moisture, temperature, and humidity. The current climate conditions within the greenhouse are aggregated and reported to a greenhouse owner's phone via an SMS. If there is a climate fluctuation detected, a specific maintenance request is also relayed. Environmental sensor readings are collected and stored locally. The IoT device is wirelessly linked with Liquid Telecom's communications network, which services all of Kenya. Through this network, our local data storage is synced with the Sigfox cloud, which permits us to process the data through our backend service, which will send SMS maintenance recommendations. Now, Svetlana will talk about our market opportunities.
Our main focus for this project will be on greenhouse owners looking to incorporate technology in Kenya. With our IoT, farmers will not only have a better system, but will also be able to work on multiple jobs, which would add to their personal finances. Moreover, we know Chile, a farm with numerous non-digitalized greenhouses, who would be our potential customers and who will be interested in buying our sensors and technology once manufactured. Now, I will share our cost estimate. Based on our calculations to test our prototype, we estimate approximately $37 to $53, for which the breakdown is also shown in the slide. Now, I will introduce our streams of revenue. To generate revenue, our current plan is to primarily sell the sensors, along with providing recommendation services, performing pH testing, running consultations, and hosting training sessions in groups. Now, David will talk about a competitive analysis.
All the companies on the left provide us solely a standalone greenhouse without any technology. Aluminum, on the right, provides a greenhouse with artificial intelligence-based recommendations. They are expensive, costing $500 for their sensors. By selling a lower-costing, mid-level technology, we appeal to the amateur farmer who cannot afford aluminum's hefty price tag and wants our reliability. Now, Jensen will talk about our campaign moving forward.
The first task we have is to make our interest-to market for IoT sensors and SMS recommendation service. Our product will help farmers to understand their greenhouses and what to do next on a daily basis. But while not a company that just sell technology, we also intend to solve the mismanaged problems through professional education. After farmers purchase our products, we will provide professional consulting service and greenhouse management training to further enhance their knowledge on greenhouse farming. Now, Shiki will talk about our next plan.
As strong proponents of equity, our team feels energized to embark on this important mission to help mitigate this issue of food security by first addressing the micro problems. Moving forward, our team will perform necessary customer discovery and continue to develop those key relationships with stakeholders. With an investment of capital, we will begin development of our sensor technology and SMS recommendation service, and later test our concept on the Penn State student farm. With a functioning prototype, we can then introduce our product in Kenya and begin growing our impact. By investing in our team's vision of providing food security to Kenya, you will help us achieve next steps in bringing our venture to fruition. Thank you. Now the floor is open for any questions and answers.
Thank you, Team 2. Okay, I will pass this off to Steve and Todd. Maybe Todd can go first this time, and as Steve passed it over, so we'll go with that.
Thanks, David. Can you talk maybe a little bit more about the business model and revenue model? You spoke of the various kind of price points, but just maybe talk a little bit about how you see the go-to-market for this and what that might look like for the future of the business. Thanks.
Yeah, so our path to market really starts with sales of our sensors. So first, we're in a prototyping phase, and once we have a viable, an MVP, we'll begin selling those products and testing and refining our idea. From there, we will begin a consultation service and pH testing. So this way, we get to know the greenhouse owners a little bit better, and we're much more familiar with what their pains and gains are. From there, we'll be experts on the field of greenhouse farming, and we feel confident to host training sessions, which will basically be a sales incentive to increase our outreach and also gain a little bit of revenue from the training sessions. We will provide a discount on our greenhouses once we get to that level.
Can you talk a little bit more about what data the sensors are capturing and what problems would be solved with that data?
So the data that's being captured, pH, temperature, and humidity, and moisture within the soil. So the temperature and humidity, with that data, it'll relay a recommendation whether to open the tarps on the side of the greenhouse, because most of these structures are made of polyethylene, not your typical glass greenhouse structure, and they're not automated. So the user needs to know when they need to outlet the air to allow an escape route for the hot air or any humidity. Additionally, when it's raining outside, there needs to be a way to let the user know when to close the tarps so that to prevent flooding inside of the greenhouse. We're looking into a sensor solution for that.
So when you said up front, how many of these fail or empty, or that kind of setting the stage for the challenge, is that because people don't know this? They don't know what to do, like they can't tell by looking at it? Is it because people are managing too many, and they could like why is it the case right now that it's such a problem?
Yeah, right now, the current estimations are without any reliability or accuracy. A sensor gives specific real-time data, whereas otherwise this is more of a full-time job now. And otherwise, they don't own a secondary greenhouse, but they may be in charge of a second job. We had spoken with a woman who was working inside of a hospital, and when asked why she wouldn't purchase a greenhouse, she said she wouldn't have time to manage it and she would need to pay someone else to do so. And I asked whether this would alleviate her stresses, and she said if that was the case and I could be notified when to attend, then I would be willing to purchase one.
Yeah, I could also add a little bit more to that as well. So it's not necessarily that they're managing multiple greenhouse structures. It's also that they don't necessarily have that extensive training and that background knowledge, because there are a lot of inequities in these places where it's remote and they don't have as much access, financial access to the resources that they would need to be properly educated in order to do this. And a greenhouse structure is typically 100,000 Kenyan shillings, and the average smallholder farmer makes anywhere between, I think it's on average 150,000 Kenyan shillings a year. So with that being said, they're going to definitely need to go out and get another a full-time job in order for them to financially support themselves and their families. So that time between working another job and maintaining this greenhouse where they might not even have additional help, it's very challenging for them. So that's why we need a solution.
Can you talk a little bit more about the competitive landscape? I know you talked about the price point being a big differentiator, but was curious that, just in terms of the market differentiation, or particularly around the technology, if there's, items that might be worth noting there as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so all the way on the left, these companies do not offer any technology at all. They're solely greenhouse companies that we've identified, just selling a greenhouse structure. Aluminum offers a structure along with a sensor, and the sensor is artificial intelligence based with cloud computing. A lot of this we thought to be overkill, whereas our sensor provides an SMS recommendation similar to aluminum's, except we're only paying $10 for Liquid Telecom to provide the SMS service, whereas they're running cloud and other data analytics. That costs their sensors to be $500, whereas we would market for around $200 as of now.
If I can add, aluminum is primarily focusing on irrigation and water flow. Like they want the farmers to know when they should come and open the tanks and when they should add more water into the fields and all those things. But we are more focusing on opening the shields of the greenhouse so that the temperature and the moisture inside the greenhouse can be maintained. So they are focusing more on irrigation. We are focusing more on the shields.
And then I understand the primary product really is the data they're getting from the sensors, but then you mentioned pH testing as another product. How is that different than the pH testing that's part of the data they're getting? And then the consulting is another product. How would that work? Like who's doing the consulting? Is that you doing that virtually? Would there be staff in Kenya that's doing that consulting? Maybe just talk a little bit about those parts of the business model. Thanks.
Yes, that brought up a small flaw in our current iteration of our prototype, where we realized that pH testing is typically done once every 1 to 3 years. So we deem this to be an unnecessary sensor since it doesn't need to be monitored real time. So we're making an assumption now that we could charge a set fee to have that done yearly, annually, or on a recurring basis for the pH testing. The consultation service is more if the greenhouse owner is having any difficulties, and if eventually we were to enter an entire greenhouse space similar to aluminum to be direct competitors, we would need to have a setup crew as well, and that includes the consultations.
Okay, thank you, Team 2, and thank you, judges, again, for some very good questions. Thank you, well done.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very
for
good. Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll take a few minutes like we did on the last one. Let the judges make some of their own notes. And if Team 3, if you could raise your hand for Kevin. I see some of you coming in.
Okay, they should all be in.
All right.
Okay, Team 3 are all of your team members online? Just to
Yes, we
confirm.
are. Yes, we are. Our mic's working. We're all good.
Yeah, I can hear.
All right.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, yes, very good. Okay.
Perfect. I will share.
Okay, Robert, if you want to bring your deck up, that'd be great.
And we can go whenever. We're good to go.
Okay.
Cool.
I think the judges are ready. So you go. Yes, very good. So go ahead.
All right.
Team 3. Thank you, Robert.
All right. My name is Robert Fulton, and I'm a professional dancer with the Nevada Ballet Theater. I'm joined today by Sasha and Eugene. I came up the ranks as a dancer and attended countless auditions. Let me take a second to guide you through the life of having a dancer. You have a beautiful 17-year-old daughter who is aspiring to be a professional ballet dancer. Here's the path she would take to becoming a professional. She started, as most dancers do, at a local school, and following along with the vast majority of dancers, she attended yearly summer intensives to bolster her training and gain exposure. But since your daughter is 17 now, she is looking to take the next step by finding a year-round training program. But since she's never left town, you don't know what companies would be the best for her, let alone where to even start finding that information. Furthermore, with the dance studio market being at over $4.1 billion, there are so many studios to choose from. Yet you need to find her the best possible training because out of over 100,000 students, only 10% of them get hired professionally. However, 90% of the students who train at programs that our website helps find get hired. You and your daughter spend hours navigating unique, confusing sites, scavenging for any scrap of buried information. But it gets overwhelming quickly. There's too much information to keep track of, and soon enough, you've bookmarked hundreds of pages. But after several frustrating hours, you can't find any programs that fit your needs. It would be a big help if there was a website that you could go to find the perfect program.
As an aspiring professional, your daughter should be spending more time dancing than scouring the web. Éclaireur, meaning scout in French, is the best way for students like her and their parents to find information on training programs, companies, and auditions. Our site provides a database of over 100 companies and schools, along with advanced search and filtering tools that will make finding the program for you easy. Our competitors in the space have outdated user interfaces, particularly on mobile devices. Their information is lacking or outdated, listing few programs or of little supporting information. They're also disconnected from the dance community at large, having little or no social media presence, making them slow to respond to user feedback. On our easy-to-use website, information is screened regularly for accuracy, and companies will be able to claim program pages to directly upload accurate information. We're also leveraging our direct connections to the ballet world to gain a greater social media and web presence, allowing us to rapidly respond to user feedback.
Our website's useful features create an efficient and streamlined user experience. Start by narrowing down your search results using our descriptive filters, and once you've found your favorites, you can save them for later viewing at your convenience. And if you wish, you can subscribe to email updates for changes made to your favorite programs. All these features come together to allow for efficient planning. Comparing programs and planning audition tours has never been easier. Here's an example of our filters in action. As you can see on our Summer Intensive Explore page, users can input a date range, tuition amount, housing requirement, and much more. Results will show up as sessions grouped under their specific intensives, and important information like dates and tuition amounts will be emphasized, allowing for easy comparison. Our website will offer information on Summer Intensive for free, since they are the most popular kind of training program. We hope this will garner a large audience with dentists of all ages. However, we will then be offering a paid subscription service, which will give users an ad-free viewing experience, exclusive features, but most importantly, access to information on other kinds of more specific ballet programs.
As Rob said previously, the dance studio market is growing rapidly. We plan to monetize in 3 ways. First, our previously mentioned subscription service. While we plan on having several pricing tiers, we predict our most in-demand option will be our audition season pass, spanning from January through April. Secondly, general ads placed throughout the site. And finally, specialized ad space for companies looking to fill spots in their programs, such as featuring companies in search results. Although famous high-level programs might already have exposure, our specialized ads will primarily be targeting the mid and lower level companies looking to fill spots in their programs. This makes us a double-facing model, connecting real students with real companies.
At Éclaireur, we've come a long way from when I first had the idea back in 2018. We launched as an LLT in July and launched our minimum viable product for testing in January for the 2021 audition season. We were able to test it, get some great feedback, and help some dancers find training. We also got in contact with several companies to see how our double-facing model would go. Among others, we talked to 2 of the top 20 companies in the United States, Ballet West and Nevada Ballet Theater. They expressed great interest in posting their information to our site and utilizing its benefits. We think that our template for a website to find training could be easily translated to any other art form. In the future, we hope to expand to helping musicians, actors, and many more artists find the training that they need. Choose us and help the next generation of emerging artists pursue their dreams. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Well done, Team 3.
Yeah. Below, we have some quotes from people who tested our site and used it. So.
Awesome. Very good. Thank you. So I think we're going to start with Steve this time. Yes.
Yeah. Could you share a little bit about, you said there's various pricing models and stuff, but maybe I missed what the price is in those models, or if so far the people that you have, since you have a working website, have these people paid? Are these paying customers? Is this just been free so far? Or what do you think those pricing tiers will cost?
I'll take this one. So our pricing right now, our MVP was free because we were just working on the summer intensives and testing our search filters. So it's all free for that part, and summer intensives will be free. But our pricing model, we will have 3. Let me go back. We are looking for good feedback on what to price it at, but our preliminary choices right now is we have the most in-demand one, which is the audition season, at about $27. Our competitor prices their full year at $30, but they do not have an audition season option. So we think that most people will want this audition season one to not have to subscribe to a full year, which will enable us to charge a lesser price, but still profit from that. Our full year will be about $35 and our 1 month will be about $15.
Thanks. And then I really like that one of the slides you had up front, you showed the journey of a student, right? Yeah. So can you talk to me about what pain you're resolving in this? Is it really at every step there's pain of finding the programs, the intensive? Yeah. Yes.
It takes countless. I mean, it's like applying to college every year for summers and year rounds. So you have to reapply to college every summer, reapply to colleges every fall for these year-round programs. So it takes a lot of work and effort.
Yeah. And roughly how many programs are in your kind of catalog that you can find? So like, is it 20 summer intensives or 2,000? Like what's the rough scale of these?
So it depends on how broad we go. Right now, we are focusing primarily on ballet until we can afford to expand out and branch to other art forms. So right now we have about 173 programs in our database right now. That number could be increased to about 200, I'd say. So 200 strictly ballet programs. There could be thousands, though, going to other dance forms.
Just to follow up on the question around current customers, how many users, or I guess, even though if they're not paying, how many users do you have currently on the site?
Sasha, you want to take that one? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it's been a while since I checked. Last I checked, we had about like 50, and that was after we contacted a few people directly to ask them to look at our site, and then also we started a little bit of social media presence, trying to network a little bit, just for like a brief moment. And so, yeah, I think it was about 50.
And then on this slide, in terms of, I really like the idea of this customer journey as well. For a subscription-based model, can you just talk about how, the kind of the how you keep those users engaged? It seems like there's a multi-year kind of journey here, but are there different features and functionality that the users would be interested in at different stages, or is this something that they would just access periodically to look up different programs?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Sorry, guys. This is ballet intensive question. So yeah, if I understood correctly, each different section. So you have local schools, summer intensive, year-round programs, post-grad programs, and companies. They all require slightly different search filters. People are looking for different kinds of things in these programs. So a summer intensive, you're looking for exposure, more fun kinds of things. So certain people will have criteria for that. But for a year-round program, you're really looking for something that will push you over the edge to get to the next level. So people will come in looking for summer intensives to be more casual, but as they progress in their ballet career, they will upgrade to looking for more strenuous, intensive things.
What kind of keeps the user engaged though? Is there a community element, or I'm just wondering, like, something like, for example, like a LinkedIn, there's the networking benefit, but then, people also use that in a job search, right? Versus just like a site where you go and just perform your search and then don't revisit it for some period of time.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, so we have email updates going out to people, keeping them involved with any updates on programs that they have subscribed to. You can subscribe to your programs and get any like real-time updates to the page. We are also having our Instagram and Facebook. We are doing a lot on social media to connect with people and notify everyone the second that there is a new program or audition that looks promising.
I'm wondering, so you mentioned there's about 173 schools right now that are part of this. Like, are these programs, from the school's perspective, they fill up so fast, they're super competitive, like they don't need to market them? Or some of these schools also need to market their programs? I just wonder if there's a potential other side of the business model, which is getting them to pay at some point to be part of this.
Yes. Eugene, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's exactly the other more business-facing component of the website. So we're hoping that once we get some more engagement and people see, like, once we get a larger user base, we're hoping that ballet companies are able to come in and see, all right, there's a lot of people, prospective students, prospective customers who are using the site to find programs. So we should get on here as soon as we can. And we're hoping that we can directly connect with them and have them directly talk to us, and so we can handle all that.
Yeah, adding on to that, actually one of the biggest monetization opportunities of this company is marketing to these mid-level companies. So as you said, the biggest programs we have in our database right now. So those are the top ones in the company that already have that exposure, that don't necessarily need to advertise that much. Their programs do fill up, but there are hundreds and thousands of these smaller, mid-level, more local companies that are trying to pay their bills by filling up their programs to the biggest spot. So they're looking for any amount of exposure in advertising. And we've talked to a few around Pennsylvania, like Performing Arts School of Central Pennsylvania and a few others. But they would be very interested in being able to market to the people looking for the biggest programs and draw in an audience to fill up their smaller programs and pay the bills.
Okay, we're going to end the questions there. Thank you, Team 3. Again, well done. We appreciate you joining us this evening. Okay, thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Okay, so we will, again, same routine. If Team 4, if you could raise your hands So Kevin can promote you, please.
Sorry, should I leave or just be demoted back?
You will be demoted. Yeah, you're good. You can hang out. Absolutely. Yeah, please stay. In fact, we wish you to stay.
Okay, Morgan and Shannon from Team 4 are now in there.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Hi.
Hello, Morgan. I think that was Morgan.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, very good. Hi, Shannon.
Hello.
Okay. Oh, we have a minute or so here. We'll let everybody catch their breath here for a second. Yeah, so if Team 4, if you'd like to get your deck shared whenever you're ready.
Our teammate Ben, who is sharing our presentation, he is running between things, so he will be on in like a minute.
Okay, well, you have it. So we told you 6:45, and it's not yet 6:45. So
actually, Ben just showed up, and
there he is. Perfect timing.
Yeah, sorry, I got on just as Shannon said I wasn't on, so I was like, hopefully they notice I'm here.
Well, will Zara, Meyer, or Matt be on there?
They might be here to watch, but they are not presenting with us.
Okay, so it's just the three of you presenting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, looks like your deck's up. Are you all ready to go?
Yeah, I believe we're all set if you're ready for us.
We are ready. Okay, go right ahead.
All right. Hello, we are Dust to Diamonds. This is a picture of the intense air pollution in Nairobi, Kenya. In Kenya, there is 3 times the recommended PM 2.5 concentration as recommended by the World Health Organization. PM 2.5 is one of the particles found in the air that is harmful to us, and it is a standard way to measure the overall quality of air. The leading cause of this is vehicle pollution, especially from bodabodas and tuk-tuks. This is Burton, an average Kenyan man who is doing his best to provide for himself and his family. To do this, he drives a boda, also known as a motorcycle. As a boda taxi driver, he makes 21,000 Kenyan shillings a month. This is about 191 US dollars, and that's on the lower end of income in Kenya. Burton is also unaware of the negative impacts driving his boda has on his community and the air quality. He does not understand that he as an individual makes an impact. As of 2019, 41% of people in Africa do not believe that individuals can make an impact on climate change, whose main contributing factor is vehicle air pollution. The low income of drivers leads them to having very narrowed priorities. For anybody, anywhere in the world, when income is tight compared to living costs, priorities consist of providing for themselves and their family. This is why the drivers are dependent on their vehicles. This also creates a lack of awareness about Burton's contribution to the air pollution in his community because it is simply not in his priority list.
This is where we, Dust to Diamonds, come into the picture. We are going to partner with boda and tuk-tuk drivers to create a program centralized around cultivating awareness of individual contributions to air pollution. To create this service, our team is designing a particulate matter filtration device that attaches to the exhaust of their vehicles. We will design this filter to be easily installed, glaringly visible for the sake of awareness, and sufficient in the collection of particulate matter. This filter will be provided to the drivers for them to use on their vehicles on a daily basis, with a monetary incentive given to them for the amount of soot collected. As we continue to learn more about an existing filter's inner carbon capture technology, we have moved forward in our design to the outside filter casing that will attach to the tailpipe of vehicles. Our design includes 2 flexible metal flaps that will allow our device to fit to different tailpipes with varying diameters. The flaps will overlap and squeeze the tailpipe tightly. These flaps will be fastened together with technology similar to that of ski boots. Perforated metal at one end will allow for the exhaust, minus the soot collected, to pass through the filter. Dust to Diamonds will also be creating an ambassador program where the drivers are encouraged to spread awareness about individual contributions to air pollution. For drivers like Burton, this means they will be paid off based on the weight of soot that they collect, and they will have the opportunity to be a brand ambassador. As a brand ambassador, drivers will have the opportunity to receive bonuses, such as merchandise, for the amount of soot they bring back. By repping our brand, Burton will spread the Dust to Diamonds message throughout his community.
While we were creating our product and service, we thought to ourselves, is there a way we can use the soot we were collecting to fund our program? Is there a way we can make something as big and bright as this whole idea? Diamonds. We plan on using the soot collected from our filter device to create diamonds. Yeah, you heard me correctly. I did say diamonds. While this might sound crazy, the technology already exists. Using a machine called the BARS device, we would be able to manufacture synthetic diamonds using the carbon collected from the bodas. A synthetic diamond costs on average of about $1,000 per carat, and this high profit margin would allow us to adequately fund our awareness campaign. Here we have a diagram depicting the cyclical nature of our processes and how we see ourselves promoting change. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions pertaining to this diagram during the Q&A portion. We are Dust to Diamonds, and we are fighting for a cleaner future. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and we'll now open the floor for any questions.
Thank you. I believe Todd is going to go first this time for Team 4.
Sure, thanks for the presentation. Can you talk a little bit about the, understand the problem, understand the solution that you're proposing, the technology to actually turn the soot into diamonds? Can you talk more about that and how feasible that is? And just maybe elaborate a little bit around kind of what the implication of that is for the business model.
Of course, I can jump in here. So as we said, the BARS device is an existing piece of technology developed by a firm in China. From our research, it costs about $250,000. So that initial investment would be made further along the line. We have a current partner per se in the diamond industry who's been giving us a lot of guidance and kind of helping us through this way. He's a big player in the diamond industry in North America. So he's helping us kind of get into the diamond market. Once we get there, we are still a very young venture. We only started this project or the venture back in early September of last year. So while it is definitely in the forefront of our minds, it's something that would be much more down the line. And he's very happy to help us get there once we're ready for it. I hope that answered your question.
So if we're looking at capturing from these motorcycle drivers, roughly how many days of driving for how many motorcycles would be enough to go through this BARS device? And recognizing that it's a longer term thing, but how much carbon needs to be captured before you would get a synthetic diamond the size of an engagement ring?
I can take this question. So as of right now, we know that the carbon capture technology, there's something called the blade filter that does collect soot from vehicles. That does exist. Right now, our plans moving forward throughout the rest of the semester and moving into the summer, our team plans to look at the blade filter and the soot that it can collect. It gave a rough number that it collects about, I think it was 27.6 grams of soot for every 8,500 miles of driving. And we're going to test that to make sure that it is factually accurate. And then from there, when we have a soot sample, we have a professor at Penn State that we have a connection with who will be testing that soot sample for us. And as of right now, we know that if we had one driver to drive the 8,500 miles in 1 year, we would have, and we have the soot that the blade filter said it would collect, we would only need that soot to be approximately 1.4% usable carbon to put into the BARS device. And those are our rough numbers right now. We're still really young, like Ben said, so we're trying to figure all of that out, but we do believe it is feasible since soot is 98% carbon, and hopefully getting 1% of that carbon out would be a feasible process for us, if that answers your question.
Yeah, and then why are you focused on Kenya specifically for this? I wonder, like, would this not be applicable in any, non-electric vehicle in any place?
I can take this
Yes.
question as well. Oh, or Morgan, do you want to go?
I was just going to say, so we're part of HESI, and our professor has a lot of connections in Kenya. So Kenya was just simply a launching ground for us. And then from Kenya, it'd be easy, like you said, easy for us to expand to anywhere that has cars, which is everywhere. So it is definitely feasible to expand outwards. I know our partner talked about expanding in India, because there are also tuk-tuks and motorbikes, which we could put on any vehicle, but those are the vehicles we're focusing on right now.
So how do you avoid perpetuating the problem, right? Because so I see how the technology can benefit the driver, and it incentivizes them to use this device, but doesn't it also incentivize them to drive more versus like replacing a carbon emitting vehicle with something electric or some other source of power?
Yeah, I can take this question. So we're trying to have this incentivized model be just the minimum amount it would require for a driver to want to participate in the program. I think our rough estimate right now would be about to cover about a third of their gas costs per year. That still leaves a very large margin of savings toward an electric vehicle. So they would save the additional 2/3 of the money they spend on gas per year. And the fact that electric motorcycles and cars require significantly lower maintenance costs, they would still benefit greatly by switching to the electric vehicles. So that's how we're trying to model this incentive model. Obviously, as we get more testing and get our feet on the ground in Kenya, we'd be able to give a more cemented number per se. I hope that answers your question.
If this technology is, it's mostly technology that's around, right? The carbon capture as well as the diamond creation. Like, why don't you think this is pervasive already? Like, why isn't every car manufactured with this carbon capture, every motorcycle? Like, yeah, why aren't these more pervasive yet?
I can answer this question. So we did talk to another company called Air Inc., where they do carbon capture as well. And they also tried to start with vehicles to capture their carbon from there, but they eventually switched to big manufacturing plants. One of the issues that they ran into was dealing with big name car companies trying to put their collection device on these cars because the company wanted to have more control over it than they said. So that's why they switched. For us specifically, since we are starting out in Kisumu, we're dealing with individual drivers rather than big corporations. And another thing as to why people haven't started to do this before is we're pairing two things together. When we do talk to people about it, they look at us like we have three heads. It is a crazy idea, but we're extremely hopeful and have the numbers to back up the fact that this is possible.
I have a question about the role of IT. Just, obviously there's the technology in the manufacture, the carbon capture and the manufacture of the diamonds, but is there a role of IT as far as how you actually identify the drivers and interact with them and build the business, kind of like an Uber type of model?
Yeah, so I'll take this. One of the questions we've gotten asked a lot in this past is what to do if like someone steals a filter from a tuk-tuk driver, one of the drivers participating in our program. So we'll likely incorporate some sort of app, and there'll be a barcode on the filter. And so the barcode will be specific to that driver. And so say someone did turn in a filter and it didn't match that person's specific barcode, the driver that the barcode belonged to, they would still get the benefits of returning the filter. So I think that's where IT comes in, and the app could, like you said, identify all the drivers and make it a more wholesome program.
Very good. Thank you, Team 4. Well done. Thanks for joining us this evening. We appreciate you sharing your ideas with us tonight. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Okay, Team 5, if you could raise your hand at this point. You have a few minutes, so
Hello.
Hi, John. Hi, Kareem.
Could you also admit the other John Keeling, please? Sorry.
Nope, that's
It's
okay.
It's how we're gonna present. Yeah.
It's all good. We are all adjusting in this in this world of
Sorry about that.
Online present. No, you're all good. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Okay, Kareem and all the Johns should be there now.
So are we starting at 7 or starting early?
We'll just do a minute. Just give us one more minute here and get your deck ready here, and I'll let you know when you're starting.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, you're good. Okay, team 5, you can go whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you. Hi, we are Reach.ai, which is a supply chain management tool that is powered by artificial intelligence. We aim to provide the public health sector with a tool that will analyze the social determinants of health for identifying the hotspot trends in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. COVID-19 is an ongoing problem that has impacted our society. The Hispanic and Latino communities are vulnerable populations that we identified with the guidance of Penn State's Project Reach. Imagine 2 personas. First, you have a Hispanic adult male living in rural Pennsylvania with a family of 3 working a labor day job. And then you have a Hispanic adult male in a affluent part of Pennsylvania that has a family of 3 and that's working remotely. So the Hispanic adult male in the rural Pennsylvania area is more likely to contract COVID due to their status in society. And Penn State's Project Reach has years of experience with research and industry experience. So with their help, we identified key variables for our risk index. And then the Pew Research Center identified, they stated that based on like their research study that about 65% of Hispanic adults they stated that they feel like COVID-19 is a major threat to their health. And then you have 47% of the general population that doesn't identify as Hispanic that says that COVID-19 is a major threat to their health.
So Reach.ai is both a big data and supply chain management solution. We are utilizing machine learning to analyze healthcare data so that healthcare workers will have improved public health outcomes while also raising awareness in the community they serve. Reach.ai has an easy-to-use dashboard that has meaningful analytics, which will help improve supply chain management. Our analytics are showing how the social determinants of health are impacting the community. With that data, the supply chain distributors can act by identifying which areas are most at risk and distribute medical attention to those areas. So here we have our demo. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I thought it was ready. Okay. So as a healthcare worker, I would use this dashboard tool and first log in to my account. So go ahead and log in. And after logging in, I would have access to meaningful analytics, which will help me analyze which zip codes are identified as hotspots for the social determinant. I would also have access to a heat map, which will help me visualize data better through markers such as these right here. Based on which zip code I select from the heat map, I will be able to visualize key data points such as population or cases. Finally, the dashboard data outcome will provide me with graphs powered by machine learning models on the back end. Go ahead and go back here. Okay. We will be leveraging IBM Watson Studio Desktop to analyze the data. The AI will identify trends which will provide insight to the data.
And these are a list of potential buyers. And so we plan on continuing with Reach.ai after COVID subsides, and we aim to focus on the diseases of despair. Right now, we want to become a nonprofit organization, and with the help of one of our mentors, we have a ballpark range of how much money we would need, like micro grants and stuff like that, to become a non-profit organization. And then also, our competitive edge is that right now, Penn State's Project Reach, they're paying their senior statistician about $100,000 a year or $400 per day to analyze their data. And we want to analyze their data with $400 a week with about $20,000 a year. So that's another competitive edge that we plan on having. And we also want to have a marketing team so that we can get more exposure in the market. And we're Reach.ai, and thanks for listening to our final pitch.
Very good. Thank you, Team 5. Also well done.
Thanks. Can you talk a little bit more? So at the very end there, you talked about an example, right, of here's an organization paying for, I don't forget the number, but $400 a day versus what we can provide, $400 a week. Can you talk a little bit more about some of those examples for your customers, right? So like you're basically able to replace manual work that's being done. I guess I'm also just trying to understand the degree of manual work that's being done now in a very timely public health crisis versus ongoing public health maintenance. So like, can you just help me understand that a little bit more?
Right. So for like our revenue model, we are basically like saying we can automate the process of the data analysis for we're aimed to do it for a small to medium-sized healthcare organization, just because they may have lack of funding for what we're trying to do for them. And it just depends. So like right now we're using IBM Watson Studio. So it costs about $99 a month. So that's part of where the money's coming from. And I don't know exactly the amount of hours that it takes, but I do know that their senior biostatistician with Penn State's Project Reach, they easily go through about 10,000 different instances of data. And that's just one person that's doing that. And that takes a lot of time. And I spoke to another researcher that says it takes as long as it needs them to take. And I know with like being in a pandemic, time is really against you. So you have to, make the most of your time. And so I felt like having a tool that will cut time and cost is a nice solution to have, especially with next steps in the outlook of Reach.ai.
In identifying your at-risk communities, and then I guess the supply chain elements of that, can you talk a little bit about just the granularity of the data? And it looked like, what scale does that data need to be at in order to identify ultimately the individuals that need those resources?
Right, that's an excellent question. I think right now, well, I know that we get our data from like publicly accessible like data repositories, and we spoke with Project Reach, and they provided us with some resources about how we can go about getting that data. And then we want to look at like the census, keep in mind like the census of like, okay, what is the population and like the expected population growth and stuff like that, so that we can have better assessments for our filtering process on the back end when we do finalize our prototype on March 31st. So like 1 week from today, we should have that completed. But that's just one thing we're looking at is just the different variables. We know that population, it's a slippery slope because not everyone is going to report things. So that's just something else we have to be aware of as well when we're mitigating those risks. So.
I'm trying to put it in my head of comparing it to a like business model, right? So I'm trying to tell me if this is a wrong way of trying to process this. But like, I understand that weather data, for example, the National Weather Service puts out a bunch of weather data. It's not necessarily formed in a way that's super useful. And so you have organizations like AccuWeather that know how to process that and turn it into something useful that can go to like customers. So so you're essentially adding value to publicly available data so that these public health organizations can more rapidly make decisions based on that data? Is that fair?
Yes, and there is some data out there that isn't publicly accessible that I want to like either buy or get granted access. And right now we're not at that stage. We're just trying to have a proof of concept so that people can see, okay, based off of this publicly accessible data, they have something that works. And now let's give them more private data so that we can get improved insights. And like there's different ways I can go about doing it, but based on like the time constraint, I just use publicly accessible data. But there's ways that you can request data or purchase data from like a data broker or something like that. So that's just some other things that we've looked at. But early on, we're just focusing on having that prototype work the way we want it to, so that we can continue adding like layers and layers on top to improve it.
And have you done this yet at all, even without the system? Have you like manually, done work with data and given it to someone and someone was like, thank you for this, and they could use it for something?
I've worked on a couple of projects like with data. It not necessarily, well, yes and no. So I do have experience with data analytics, working doing internships, providing analytics that way. So yes and no, just because I can't really go into specifics on what type of data it was or the different things that they have going on with their data. But yes, I have like worked with data, large sums of data, and made meaningful use of it for the client, but just not necessarily with how Reach.ai is aiming to provide a service, public health service.
Can you talk a little bit more about the supply chain part of the solution? And then I guess maybe related, just you talked about using IBM Watson, but just the role of AI specifically in the solution.
Yes, so for the supply chain part, we're trying to help these healthcare organizations that lack funding, and so that they are able to see, like, map out, okay, we need this amount of PPE, or we need this amount of vaccinations within a specific time frame for a specific region. So some areas aren't going to need the same, like let's say 100,000 vaccines within a week. Like some regions won't need that, right? And then the AI aspect of it is we are creating a way for the end user, like the healthcare worker, for them to have smart recommendations or have improved informed decisions, because a senior biostatistician, they're already making informed decisions, but with the utilization of artificial intelligence, they can make sounder decisions that you can back it up with the computer algorithm or the statistical modeling, and that's there's so many different machine learning models out there, and working with researchers to validate what you're trying to do, like it all just goes together. And IBM Watson, I've been working with their desktop studio to create those models, and right now we're for our finished product, we want to have it connecting the front end to the back end. But right now we just have like screenshots to provide like visual aid for those that are reviewing our presentation, our prototype.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Team 5. We're going to end our questions there. And wow, what a great group of presentations, but way to wrap this up for us, Team 5. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And so what we're going to do at this point is the judges are going to leave us, and they're going to join a different Zoom room for their deliberation. And I'm going to join them here in a few minutes. But we are going to have a keynote speaker here this evening, as I mentioned at the very beginning, at the top of the last hour at 6 o'clock. Nayeem Hussain is going to be joining us here and giving us our keynote speech talk while our two judges are deliberating and making their decision. And so I'm going to pass it off to Nayeem. Thanks again for joining us. Great to have you here tonight. And
problem.
I will, I'm going to go join the judges now. Pam and Kevin are here as well, but be back here in a little bit. So thank you.
All right, you guys can hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, it's great to be here. My name's Nayeem Hussain. I'm so pleased to listen to your pitches. I enjoyed all of them. You guys should be super proud making it to the finals. So previously, I've coached and also judged this event, so now I can add another angle of involvement to the list. Quick background on me, I'm a two-time startup founder and CEO. One of my companies went from concept to scale and was acquired by a larger tech company. My second company that I founded after that failed after about a year, so I've got a lot of good highs and some lows as well. Both experiences taught me a lot about getting a startup off the ground, and I thought I'd speak for a few minutes today on that topic. I'll try to leave about 5 minutes at the end for your questions. So, as I'm talking and you think of questions, just please chat them in. So, as I'm speaking, and I'll try to get to them at the end, as many of them as possible. So, what is the right time, right? Some of you may be wondering, when is the right time to launch a startup, right? Obviously, there's no right or wrong answer, but for me, I think it's important to mention that prior to getting my MBA and then becoming an entrepreneur, I had a successful career in the finance industry for about 6 years, right? So my corporate experience gave me both soft skills and hard skills, that helped me make that leap to become an entrepreneur. Some of the soft skills I learned. So what do I mean by soft skills? Soft skills are like power of persuasion, right? Building consensus, working effectively in a team, managing others, negotiation, presenting to executives, building my network, right? These are all soft skills that I learned in the corporate world. And hard skills, right? What do I mean by hard skills? Financial modeling, business writing, mergers and acquisitions, how to buy another company, how that all works, capital raising, right? So all of those skills that I just mentioned have really been integral to my success as an entrepreneur. So while in 2021, it may seem really sexy to graduate from college and jump right into a startup, there's certainly something to be said about getting some real world professional experience first. And don't forget, you can make a decent salary and save some money, which could come in handy. So you decided to jump in, and now you're a first-time full-time founder. My first piece of advice is find an edge that's going to hook your stakeholders. So by stakeholders, I mean investors, early customers, early employees, right? These are all stakeholders to your ecosystem as you're getting started, right? So since the startup scene has really exploded over the last decade, this means it's much more of a competitive environment, right? So you've got a lot more founders that are fighting for the same pot of resources, right? So a great way to build your network and stand out is like taking an active role in your local startup community, right? Go to meetups, meet other founders. Can't find what you're looking for, start your own meetup. Take an active role, right? Put yourself out there. You can blog about your viewpoint, right? You don't have to necessarily physically leave your home these days. You can blog about your viewpoint, build a following, right? Your goal should be to become a thought leader in whatever industry you're in. Personally, I'm a big fan of accelerator programs. The top two in the world are Y Combinator and Techstars. You can see by my hoodie which one I'm involved with. Getting admitted into a top tier accelerator program is a great way to build your network, speed the growth of your company, and just add credibility to your startup. So at the end of the day, you want to find a way to set yourself apart because there's a lot of noise out there, right? So raise your hands. How many of you enjoy public speaking? Probably not that many of you, right? There's a reason why it's one of the most feared things for people to do. It's hard and we don't practice it nearly as much as we should, right? So the thing about running a startup is there's no real way around pitching, as you guys are finding out, right? Once you get your elevator pitch down, right? So your elevator pitch is a 2 or 3 sentence summary of your problem and solution. You should be pitching it every chance you get, right? To just get feedback and see if people understand what the hell you're talking about, right? If you need to raise outside capital, right, or strike a big deal with somebody, you'll need to create a pitch deck and then present it, right? This takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. So a few pieces of advice I could give here is to confront this challenge head on. So pitch to your family, pitch to your friends, pitch to anyone who will listen and give you honest feedback. Tape yourself pitching, watch the recording so you can pick up on things to improve on. When you practice, practice like you play. So that means if you're practicing pitching, do it with real energy. There's a lot of resources out there to becoming a better public speaker. You know, YouTube is obviously a great tool to find some really awesome videos. So if this is a weakness of yours, there is ample opportunity and really no excuses to try to turn it into a strength. So knowing your business inside and out, don't be afraid to ask for help. This is somewhat related to the last slide. When you're pitching your company to investors or prospective business partners, you really need to know your stuff, right? So what are your unit economics? How big is your total addressable market? How does your business model work? Where do you see your company in the next 5 years? What's your next big milestone and how do you get there, right? There's literally thousands of questions that people will ask you, and you need to be intimately familiar with the details of your business to answer them intelligently, right? So this is obviously doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a lot of dedication, it takes a lot of reading and research, and obviously mentorship, right? So having good advisors and mentors who have hopefully successfully built and scaled companies will be critical to your success, because oftentimes you simply don't know what you don't know, right? So seek these people out, find them, impress them as soon as possible. Traction is key. So when you're trying to get your startup off the ground, you're often going to hear this word. Well, what kind of traction do you have? Much of what these early stakeholders want to know before becoming involved with your company, and again, stakeholder can be an investor, can be a partner, it can be an employee, right? They're all going to want to know, you know, why is this company special? Why should I get involved with you? How big of an impact can it have? So traction is just some sort of an indication of market acceptance for your product, right? So this could be in the form of millions of dollars of pre-orders on Kickstarter, right? It could be a big supply agreement with a large enterprise customer. It could be a big partnership with an established brand, right? There's all sorts of ways that you can get traction. How do you do it? There's not one right answer, right? And it's really specific to your business. Ultimately, you should always be laser focused on validating demand, right? So you can start small. You can throw up a basic landing page, right? You can create one on Squarespace, right, or Wix, and pay for some digital ads that direct to whoever your target market is. You can pay some ads, pay for some ads, direct them to that landing page, have a call to action for an email sign up, and just see who signs up, right? And then maybe contact them and talk to them, get to know, you know, who exactly is interested in what I'm selling and why, right? As you get a better understanding of product market fit, you can create a funnel of ideal customers and then come up with some KPIs that help track your progress with these customers. Now, if you have no idea what a funnel is or what KPIs are, that's okay. Just Google it, ask an advisor, ask a mentor, right? Who's got some experience there. But build a funnel, create some KPIs, and ultimately your goal should be finding the traction that's going to get your company noticed and get your company to that next level, right? So speaking of next level, focus on progress, right? When you're running your own startup, it's really, really important to set milestones for the company and make sure that you and your team are, you know, what activities you're doing or what you're doing on a weekly basis is driving towards those milestones, right? So it's really easy to lose focus and like doing a whole bunch of random activities every week with no real continuous thread of focus, right? So while you're super busy, right, you don't end up making a lot of progress. So be ruthlessly selective with new initiatives and projects that you want to take on, and make sure that they're contributing and driving towards accomplishing a set milestone that you set out for yourself, right? So examples of some milestones can be, I want to raise a $3 million seed financing round in the next 9 months. I want to sign 3 customers, each committing to $500,000 of a purchase order in Q3 of this year. I want to hire a head of marketing in the next 90 days, right? Get with your team, right? And think about what are the milestones you guys need to sort of keep the business moving forward, and focus on, you know, hitting those milestones. You're not always going to hit them, right? And if you fail to meet them, take a few days with your team, assess why, right? And then use that analysis to fine tune your future milestones, right? So on the flip side, setting milestones that are too easy to achieve, right, will mean that you're not making progress fast enough and you could get passed by other competitors who are out executing you. They're out hustling you, right? So you got to strike a balance, but really focus on, keeping that business moving forward. So I say this somewhat facetiously. I love playing poker. So much of business can be translated to poker strategy, right? Learning when to bluff, when to pivot, when to fold, when to give up, right? They're all essential. Now I know this talk is geared towards, getting your startup off the ground, but there's no shame in shutting your company down, right? So what is a shame is wasting years and years and years of your prime earning years chasing a dream that's never going to come to reality, right? So this could be for all sorts of reasons. You just don't have product market fit. There's not enough demand. Your market's too small. Your unit economics don't work, right? There could be a variety of reasons, right? Part of your job as an entrepreneur is to be honest with yourself and really, really candidly assess your company's prospects of success, right? So like, for example, let's say you created a financial model, right, for your company. And, this is after, maybe a year, of doing business and you've got some early customers and you realize that like your customer acquisition cost, what it's costing you to get a new customer is like far and beyond more than what you can hope to get from that customer over their entire lifetime with you and your product, right? That's a horrible metric, right? You want it to be the other way. You want to get a customer for cheap and have their lifetime value be huge, right? So that means your business, as you've like constructed it, probably isn't viable, right? Like, wouldn't you want to know this sooner rather than later, right? So like lots of successful entrepreneurs and VCs love playing poker, and it's no wonder why. So this is super important and something I'm really passionate about is self-care, right? So startups are a roller coaster. There's hopefully going to be a lot of highs, but there's also going to be lows, right? So I can't really overstate how important it is to take care of your physical and emotional health as you're getting your company off the ground, right? So make time to exercise every day, practice deep breathing, wear some, blue light blocking glasses, right? At night, get some good sleep, carve out time to take a vacation with no screens, learn how to meditate, right? So wearing this sort of no vacation policy as a badge of honor is just not smart, right? It can lead to burnout. It can lead to anxiety, to tunnel vision, right? Like I've always personally found that stepping away for a few days every few months really helps me form, what I call an outside-in perspective on my business and my assumptions, right? So that means I'm not just buried in the details day in and day out. I can sort of step away and like approach any pain points that I'm dealing with, any tricky questions from a fresh viewpoint, right? So it's really, really important to take care of yourself as you start a journey of starting your own company. So don't be arrogant, treat people fairly. This sounds obvious, right? But you'd be surprised how many folks raise some money, start seeing a little success, and they really let that go to their heads. They start treating their employees like crap. They get an aura of superiority. Remember that as a CEO, if you're privileged enough to employ other people, right, you're not only a role model to them, but you're responsible for their professional development, right? You're their leader, right? So be generous with your time and generous with how you compensate your employees. So if employees feel like you're taking advantage of them, you're going to face high turnover, which is going to put you in rough shape if you're trying to get your company off the ground. And you get a bad reputation, right? So no one's going to want to come work for you, right? So be generous with your time, build a great company culture, right? It should have, it should mimic the values that you stand for, right? And take the time to give feedback to your employees and help them grow, right? Help them grow as professionals, as people. It's really, really important. So this is my last slide. Be grateful, enjoy the ride. Don't forget to say thank you. I can't express strongly enough how much of a blessing it is to be, able to successfully get a company off the ground, build a business from the bottom up. If you're lucky enough to achieve, even a little bit of success getting your startup off the ground, make sure you take the time to enjoy yourself, right? What's the point otherwise? If you're able to build a business that helps other people solve a pain point in their lives, that's something to celebrate. If you're able to raise some money and hire some people and contribute to our great US economy, that's something to celebrate. There's a reason, we entrepreneurs do this day in and day out. It's because we love it, right? If you don't love it, what's the point of going through all the pain to get to that sort of light, right? Have a constant gratitude for, all the shoulders of the people you stood on to help got you to where you are, right? It'll help you keep things in perspective. So this includes saying thank you to your parents, your family, your friends, your mentors, your advisors, your teammates, right? So thanking and recognizing these people is really, really important. So I hope this talk was helpful as you contemplate what it takes to get your startup off the ground. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you. Let me see if there's there's some good questions here. Let me see.
Yeah, Naeem, Eugene has a question in the Q&A.
Okay.
He says, do you have any tips on engagement and how do you get people interested in your product?
Tips for engagement and how do you get people interested in your product? Yeah, so that's a common question, right? It's like, how do I drive interest in my product? How do I engage, right? And there's not one answer. It depends on what kind of product it is. Is it a digital product? Is it a physical product, right? There's all sorts of ways, right? In this day and age, you can put yourself out there in all sorts of ways. You can put your product out there in all sorts of ways. You can, like I said, you can build a landing page, right? And see who comes to it, right? You can pull people in through different forms of advertising. You can pull people in through crowdfunding campaigns. Building that content around whatever it is that you're doing. And when I say content, that could be like collating other really smart viewpoints and putting it together in like a digest and emailing it out to people. That could be creating your own viewpoint and, writing and putting that out there and getting feedback on Medium or whatever, right? What you ultimately need to do is figure out what your viewpoint is on your problem solution that you're tackling and put it out there, right? And you're smart enough, you're all smart enough to know how to put content out there, right? And then see what comes back and then have that dialogue and build that authenticity around what your message is. And if there's authenticity there, it's not like, oh, I'm just trying to sell you something. Then you build a little bit of a following and then you can start to test, okay, is this what people really care about? Is this a problem worth solving? And then you start to build that engagement. But it's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and effort to build that kind of content and put it out there and get that kind of snowball effect.
Next question, Naeem,
yep.
is how many folks should be onboarded at one time?
Okay. So it's a little bit vague, but I'm assuming you're talking about like maybe a beta or an alpha test of your product. It depends what stage it's at, right? If it's like super buggy, you want to do what's called, you want to always segment your early customers, right? You want to segment them into like super early adopter evangelizers that are going to ride with your company no matter what, and are going to be really forgiving because they just love what you're doing, right? Then there's folks that are maybe not as enthusiastic, but still pretty enthusiastic. So you want to like develop these different segments, right? And what I've done in one company is, literally started a Slack channel and invited, I said, okay, who's spending more than $1,000 on my product? So I sliced those people into a cohort. I then reached out to them, right? Well, my team reached out to them and invited some of them to a private Slack channel. And we were able to create a dialogue with them to test new features out, to become sort of early testers, right? And we knew that they would be forgiving enough that they, would give us honest feedback. And if things were buggy and didn't work well, wouldn't throw us under the bus, right? So, when deciding how many people to onboard at any given time, honestly assess where your product is as far as like being market production ready, right? And then figure out, okay, what is the characteristics of these people that I'm letting in? Maybe I should segment them and let in those more forgiving people first, and then try to solicit feedback from them as quickly as possible. Always be talking to your customers. Always be talking to your customers. And then that'll help you iterate and improve on your product.
The next one's more of a comment, I think, from the first question. It's Eugene says, it's something I've been thinking about a lot with online school. Getting people to buy in is hard over Zoom.
Yeah. Look, I mean, remember, you're not the only one dealing with Zoom being an impediment, right? It's a level playing field, right? So, find a way to take what makes Zoom really thorny sometimes and difficult, and try to find a way to like break that barrier down and make it work for you, right? So, I wasn't clear. Is the business an online school, or are you having trouble
No.
with remote learning?
He was just making a comment about how school's online, and so it's very similar. Everything's pitched on Zoom nowadays.
Yeah.
The next question is, how do you go about getting in contact with big name investors, companies, and other people who want to work with, however reluctant to respond?
That's a great question. It kind of goes back to my point about like, what's your hook, right? Because think about it. If you're a big company, if you're a Google, or if you're a Facebook, or if you're a Twitter, or whatever big tech company, right? Or if you're a big investor, think of how many people are bombarding you on a daily basis, trying to partner with you, trying to get money from you, right? So you gotta have some sort of differentiation, right? Because there's so many startups out there that are all fighting for that same attention, right? All of them want to get a big deal with a big partner. All of them want to get a big check from a big investor, right? So, you've got to figure out, okay, what is so special about me or my team or my idea, and how can I set myself apart to get these people to pay attention to me, right? And again, there's no one answer for, oh, you do this. Like for me, right? I started my first company in 2013, so it wasn't really as exploded as the startup scene is today. But for us, like getting into Techstars was super important, right? They have a 3 or 4% acceptance rate. It's super selective, but by just the fact that we got in, they select 10 companies, right, out of the thousands that apply, right? So us 10 companies, we got all these resources. We got put in front of those investors, right, at private meetings, right? So those investors could get a sneak peek at us, right? And that helped them say, oh, wow, I'm getting a special look at this company. And of course, it helped us because we were able to set ourselves apart. So, and again, I'm not saying Techstars is the be all end all. There's tons of ways that you can get noticed. Try to get some press, right? If you know people that are bloggers or journalists, right? Try to get some press coverage, right? Whatever advantage you might have, or whoever you know in your network that can help you get a warm introduction to an investor that maybe is their cousin or maybe is their former coworker, right? Tap your network, tap the resources at Penn State, right? Chances are there's some alumni of Penn State that knows somebody that you want to get in touch with, or works at the organization, or used to work there. It's the largest alumni base in the world, right? So use your advantages that you have to try to create that edge, try to create that hook for yourself, for your company, to get those meetings, to get noticed. The best way to get meetings with a high-level investor, a high-level corporate, it's called a warm introduction, right? So you go through somebody that person who you wants to meet with trusts, right? And say, hey, I'd like to introduce you to Pam Long, right? I've known her for the last 5 years. I know that she's a hard worker, and I'm super excited about this idea she's working on. Please take 10 minutes out of your day and speak to her. That person will speak to Pam Long, right? Because they trust me. I've just referred her. She'll at least get that first meeting, right? Then it's up to her if she's going to get a second meeting, right? You got to use the network. You got to use the resources that you have to set yourself apart.
Okay, next question. Shike asks, I have noticed that many people struggle with finding team members. Do you have a specific method that has worked for you in terms of finding people to connect with while also getting a good sense of their skills?
Great question. Finding team members, finding employees, right? Once you start to build your company is super time consuming, and it can be challenging, right? The beauty of today is the world's a much smaller place, right? So you can meet people a lot easier today than maybe 10, 15 years ago, right? And get to know people remotely, get a sense of what their personality is like, get a sense of what their experience is just by going on LinkedIn and seeing who they're connected to, seeing what kind of shared connections you have, talking to those shared connections. Hey, what do you think about this person? I'm thinking about maybe, trying to see if they want to work with me. What's your experience with them, right? So again, use your network. Always start with your network, right? And, radiate outward, right? So when you're looking for a teammate, when you're looking for a co-founder, right, you got to put yourself out there, right? So what we did when we were looking for a co-founder, we started going to meetups all over New York City, right? And begging the person running the meetup if they would let us speak for 5 minutes at the beginning or the end, just to introduce what we were working on and see if there's any other like-minded people out there. So, almost every day we were going and just giving elevator pitches to rooms full of people. And lo and behold, we found somebody, right? So it's easier to do that these days virtually. Like I said, you can meet people more quickly, but you got to put yourself out there. You got to be constantly pitching your idea, that elevator pitch I was talking about. Ultimately, people are going to want to work with you if they sense your passion and your excitement for what you're working on. And if you could communicate that to as many people as possible, chances are you're going to find somebody else that gets really excited and wants to work with you. And I think that's my time.
I think we have time for one last question if you have,
okay.
you have a chance.
No, that's fine.
For a startup, should one focus more on connecting with investors or finding customers?
Finding customers, for sure. Because if you find customers, paying customers, the investors will connect with you, believe me, right? The worst thing you can do is start connecting with investors too early, right? And start pitching and get into this whole, I'm going to pitch all these investors, but you don't really have that traction. Remember that slide I was talking about, traction. All the investor wants to know is, how am I going to de-risk this investment for my limited partners, right? That investor generally has partners who are investing their money through that investor. It's their responsibility to invest at the highest return for the least risk, right? So when they're talking to you, they're going to want to know, well, why am I not going to lose all my money on this investment? So it's up to you to say, well, look, I've got these paying customers. This is the rate that my paying customers are growing every month, every quarter, right? This is why my business is going like this and not like this, right? If you haven't spent the time acquiring customers, you're going to be selling a whole lot of vapor to that investor. And look, maybe you're good at selling vapor and maybe it'll work for you, but chances are it's not going to work out so well. So definitely spend the time validating demand, talking to early customers, taking that feedback, putting it back into your product, iterating, and hopefully, you start to see some nice momentum and getting some more and more paying customers, more and more people talking about your product, a little bit of buzz builds. That's the perfect time to start talking to investors. And by the way, there's an old adage with investors: if you ask for advice, you'll get money. If you ask for money, you'll get advice. I really believe that. So don't be afraid to talk to investors, maybe a little early, but just ask for advice, right? Don't say, hey, look, I want to raise this amount of money. Are you going to cut me a check? Say, hey, look, this is how I've been building my business. These are some issues that I'm facing. What have you seen through other investments or your experience? And then what that does is it gets that investor engaged with you. It gets them understanding how you're thinking about scaling your business, and it starts to build a relationship. And then what I would do is I would say, okay, here are the 20 investors that I've spoken to for advice over the last 6 months. Now, and I'll add them all to an email list, and I'll send them updates every month. I'll send them an update. Hey, Bob, I just want to shoot you a quick note. Thanks for that advice. Here's how I've incorporated it into my business, and here's how my business has grown. So therefore, at the end of 6 months, at the end of a year or whatever, right, those 20 investors that you've kept updated all along, they'll be able to close on an investment in your company much, much faster than just a cold conversation with a brand new investor that has no idea who you are, no idea what your business is all about, right? So there's strategies to, keep people updated, throughout your progress, but definitely focus on building your customer base.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And thanks,
My
Naeem.
pleasure.
I really appreciate you spending time with us this evening. And now I want to go back and watch the recording of what you talked about because I missed it. So I'm looking forward to watching it.
All right.
Awesome. Sound like you had some great questions too. So that's really cool.
No, thanks everyone for the engagement. I appreciated that.
So here we are. We're going to announce our winners this evening. And first of all, I just want to again thank Todd and Steve for being our judges this evening. It's been really great having them here tonight, and I know that their time is very valuable. So I want to thank them for being here tonight. Some of the things that they said to me in the when we were in the deliberation room was that first of all, they're going to be sending me the feedback for the teams that I will pass along to each of the teams so that you get that, the pros and the cons of how well you did and some of the things that you could improve on. And one of the things that they said was make sure that you all had great ideas and make sure that you keep going. Don't stop here tonight, regardless of where you place. Make sure that you keep going and take your great ideas and take the advice that Naeem gave you. I'm sure was some pretty awesome advice, and keep going with those ideas. Okay, so I'm going to share my slide deck here, and I'm assuming you can all see that. So, okay. So, and the winner is, and the first thing we're going to talk here about is our Dave Hall Award that we are going to be awarding this evening. Dave was a dean in the College of IST for a number of years. A lot of people say he's our beloved dean, or was our beloved dean, and unfortunately Dave is no longer with us. But Dave actually hired me, and I'm sure he knows a lot of the people on the call. And so we created this award to really honor him and the kinds of leadership that he provided to us in IST. And so congratulations, Team Dust to Diamonds, for your enthusiasm and your collaborative approach to your idea this evening. And so we will be in touch with you. Pam Long will be in touch with you about what's next with this award. But we wanted you to know that we appreciate your passion and what you brought with us to us this evening. Okay, so we're going to go in reverse order here in third place. But before we do that, just as a reminder, we have cash prizes this year, and we usually do trips or some other things, but this year we decided to go with some cash prizes, which I don't think students will complain much about that at all. But here are our award amounts, just so that you're aware as a reminder. So our third place winner of this year's IdeaMakers Challenge, third place this year goes to Recycle.io, and very good idea and some good presentation that you made with us, and the kind of use of technology that you're going to be making available with this. So again, thank you, Team 2, for presenting your idea with us this evening for third place. This year, our second place winner of our IdeaMakers Challenge, and that goes to Diane Sapo. And this is the team one. This is the first team that went this evening, but this particular team had some great ideas around solving a much needed problem. And again, we appreciate the passion that you brought with us this evening for your presentation. And our first place winner of this year's IdeaMakers Challenge, and this particular team was actually a unanimous decision by both judges for first place. And this year's first place winner is Eclairo. And this particular team, this was team 3 that went. This particular team was recognized by the judges for having a clearly identified customer, a very strong vision, very strong passion in the team overall, and how you presented your idea this evening. So congratulations to Eclairer and your first place win in this year's IdeaMakers Challenge. So well done. Thank you. If we were in a room, we could all have our open clapping happening, and in our room at Westgate, and hopefully we'll be there next year. But so those are our third, second, and first place winners for this year's IdeaMakers Challenge. I want to again thank everybody for your participation in this. But as with the Dave Hall Award, we will be in touch for those of you who won first, second, and third place about how we get you those funds. And just so you know, the first place winner will be announced tomorrow evening, I believe, with President Barron's talk tomorrow night about he will be recognizing all of the first place winners of all of the different challenges across the university. So Eclairer, you will be mentioned tomorrow evening from President Barron, which is pretty awesome. So this wraps up our evening this evening for this year's IdeaMakers Challenge. It's been interesting times for all of us, but I think everybody did just a fantastic job. You stuck with it. You really presented your ideas well, and you shared your passion, which is really what this challenge is about. So again, thank you to our judges, Todd and Steve, for joining us this evening. Nayeem, thanks for joining us for your I'm sure inspirational talk while we were deliberating, but I'm sure everybody really enjoyed your talk, and again, glad that you had some great questions. Pam, is there anything that any other things to wrap up that I missed?
No, we will be in touch with all the winners about receiving their awards, and the Dave Hall Award winners will actually receive a trophy that has the name of their team on it. So we'll get that to you as well.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, well, again, we appreciate your participating in this year's IdeaMakers Challenge and supporting the College of IST. And I'm hoping to see some of you soon in the future on the campus, and hope you're all doing well and have a great rest of your startup week.